He didn't walk into an empty house. That's the part everyone keeps skipping. Cameras caught Prince Harry at 5:20 p.m., head down, stride tight, slipping through Clarence house for the first face-to-face with his father in 19 months. But minutes before the Sussex door click, another car eased past the railings and vanished into London's early evening. Not William. Not Anne. It was Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, calm, contained, the royal who never wastes a frame. If you think the order doesn't matter, you don't understand palaces. Sequences are sentences. Who goes in before whom tells you more about a day's meaning than a dozen friendly statements ever will. Let's hold the hour still. Late afternoon, the 10th of September. Harry has done the hospital rounds, Imperial College London's Centre for Blast Injury Studies in White City, shaking hands with the men and women rebuilding lives one nerve ending at a time, the Invictus lane he always walks best. Back in St. George's Chapel earlier, he bowed where the nation bowed, laid flowers where the nation laid them, kept a promise to the grandmother who taught him, and all of us, that steadiness can be louder than speeches. The headlines wrote it as a return. The truth felt smaller and more important. A son was putting himself back on familiar stone, taking measure before the meeting that actually mattered. Meanwhile at Clarence house, the door isn't revolving, it's precise. Sophie in first. Why Sophie? Because when Windsor is trying to breathe without making a sound, she's the one who knows how to carry air. 4 days in Canada on the King's behalf, threading British-Canadian links and charity work through rooms that never make the front page, but prop up the whole structure. Commonwealth isn't theatre, it's maintenance. You brief the monarch in person, when what you're carrying is institutional oxygen. It also tells you the frame for the rest of the hour, first the crown's work, then the family's wound. That order is not cold. It's the only way the monarchy remembers how to be itself when the human story threatens to take over the calendar. Notice the absence that launched 1,000 tweets. William wasn't seen arriving, wasn't seen leaving, wasn't photographed anywhere near that front door. If he was looped in, it was by phone, at distance, in the language as used when the ground is still moving, steady, unsentimental, kind without being theatrical. The invitation this time was for 2 people only. A father who has learned what privacy is worth. A son who has learned what leaks cost. You don't stage that photo unless you are begging to set the country on fire. And you don't beg for fire in a week like this. Was Queen Camilla inside? No one confirmed, and that silence is deliberate. The last time Harry flew in, February 2024. The visit that arrived like a thrown stone, tabloids ran hot with anonymous steam about outrage and attitude, a courtier quote here, a radar online sting there. Believe as much as you like, it's your blood pressure. What matters is the correction, this time the choreography carried no surprise. The door opened when everyone expected it to. No one would allow a second round of drop-in diplomacy. If Camilla was present, it would have been a spouse and steward, note-taker to a reign that cannot afford sentiment without schedule. If she wasn't, that is its own message. The men needed a room without an audience and without a witness, even a loving one. The meeting itself ran just over 50 minutes. That length is interesting. 10 minutes is symbolism, a handshake, a camera, a sentence turned into a headline. 2 hours is excavation, old maps, bad weather, the kind of talk that leaves furniture out of place. 50-ish minutes, tea cooling to the color of a London bus stop, is the middle path. Long enough to be real, short enough to be safe. No leaks followed, which is the loudest detail in the quietest voice. You only keep a room clean when every heart in it has decided the work is bigger than the need to be heard. Reporters still tried, of course. They always will, and Harry gave them the only sentence the Crown can live with right now, yes, his great, thank you. 7 words that neither ignite nor insult. 7 words that say, we are attempting adult supervision. If you want the palace translation, it's this: family is personal, the crown is public, the boundary is not negotiable. That boundary showed itself twice in the same day. First, in the sequencing, Sophie's institutional brief before Harry's human one. Second, in the duration, enough time to matter, not enough to turn into a stage play. The monarchy doesn't heal on camera. It is allowed to be tender. It is not allowed to be messy. That's the rule Elizabeth wrote in bone and Charles is trying to keep in muscle. Do not mistake the order of arrivals for a snub. You don't put the Commonwealth update after the reconciliation attempt, you build the table, then you invite the conversation. Sophie's understated competence is the monarchy's insurance policy in weeks like this. She turns big rooms into small ones, translates schedules into sense, and leaves every place tidier than she found it. Canada wanted attention, the king owed it. Harry wanted a hearing, the king offered it. 2 duties, 1 house, 1 hour, and no leaks. That is the closest thing to perfection these corridors can manage anymore. There's a shadow shape moving along the skirting boards, and it answers to the name February. Everyone remembers the last time the Sussex timetable did not talk to the palace timetable, when an unexpected arrival turned a private concern, cancer, the word no one wants to say out loud, into a public silhouette. The palace does not forgive embarrassment quickly. That is why September was engineered to feel like ballast instead of drama. Harry did charity first, chapel second, father third. The verbs were arranged to look like service, then memory, then family. Not brand, not friction, not spectacle. You could practically hear the household exhale. Now, the part your heart wants and your head should resist, is this a thaw? A reset? A photoless photo op? People who make their living on drama will answer all 3 at once and ask you to choose the one that raises your pulse. Here's the version that will still be true next week. 2 men, who have both been hurt by the same machine, tried to talk without the machine in the room. They gave themselves under an hour, because grief and love can start to misbehave if you give them all afternoon. They kept their sentences short. They ended where they had to, with a line Harry could speak in public that wouldn't set the king's blood pressure monitor off at midnight. Does William mind the optics? He's human. For 2 years he has been the senior royal voice on Ukraine. Quiet visits to troops, time with refugees, steady words that never cross the rails of neutrality. And now his younger brother has a Kiev frame the internet is married to. He will swallow it, because that's what heirs do. He will run the job that exists, not the job the comments section assigns him. He was not seen at Clarence's house, because the room was not about him. That is not demotion. That is discipline. Do you want to read meaning into the 50 minutes? Read this much and stop. Anything leak-free in this family is intentional. The no drama, no detail code holds until one of the principals decides it doesn't. Harry has a record of speaking later, in his own time, and he is entitled to his memories of his own life. The Crown has a record of not loving that approach, and it is entitled to protect the institution that outlives everyone's memoirs. That tension doesn't disappear, because a cup of tea went cold on a September evening. It just got managed for 1 hour without an explosion. In 2025, that counts as progress. What about Camilla's temperature? You'll be invited to remember quotes you didn't hear, and moods you can't verify. Here's the test that actually matters. Did the household look surprised? No. Did the schedule look bent around an ego? No. Did the narrative ask for your sympathy? No. The Queen has been doing a hard, thankless job with a small margin of error. Her best contribution on days like this is to be both present and invisible, the definition of consort. And Sophie. If you missed her car, that's because she meant you to. She is the monarchy's reminder that most of what matters arrives without ceremony and leaves without applause. In 4 days abroad, she stitched a dozen small seams tighter. In one brief at Clarence's house, she handed the king the thread he needed to tie off the public part of his day before he faced the private part. That is service. It will never trend. It will keep the roof where it belongs. Harry's closing line, yes, his great thank you, will be mocked as bland by people who worship confession. Never underestimate the power of bland in a system that survives on oxygen rather than fireworks. A non-answer is sometimes the only answer that signals peace talks are at least possible. The alternative is appetite, ours, not theirs, dragging two people back into the arena before either of them has found the sentence that doesn't make tomorrow worse. So no, he didn't walk into an empty house. He walked into a machine that tried, for once, to be humane without losing its shape. The crown's work went first. The family's need went second. The door closed properly. The hour ended neatly. The cars left in the order they arrived. And for one evening, the story didn't eat the people at the center of it. If you prefer crescendo, you will hate this. If you prefer grown-ups, you might allow yourself a small, careful hope. If you've stayed this far, you know why the minutes before mattered more than the minute after. Sequence is substance. A quiet departure, a quiet arrival, a quiet sentence, and, most important of all, quiet that held. If that's the kind of royal coverage you want, measured, sourced, less noise, more meaning, stay with this channel. And tell me below, does a leak-free 50 minutes sound like a thaw to you, or just good hydraulics? Either way, remember the rule the late Queen taught her family, and, frankly, the rest of us: be seen when it helps, be quiet when it heals, and let the work outlive the week. Everything else is commentary.